Okay, give me just a moment to get everything ready. And Pshow. Oh, hold on a second. Forgot I had changed shirts to clean something up. Okay, I'm back. This is Carlton. Beautiful cat, isn't he? Look, glossy the coat and perfect, healthy. He's not overweight or anything. And yeah. Anyway, so tonight I'm not sure what I'm gonna do. I may or may not have said something back on Sunday, but who knows? So I think what I'm probably going to do is I'm going to sit here and just kind of shoot the breeze with the audience until I get an audience. And during that, perhaps an idea shall strike my brain. And then meanwhile, we got a Carlton. Same cat that was back there in the windowsill. Ugh. Yes, we have our Carlton. Little fuzzy buddy. What you doing, little buddy? Yeah. So, I saw something today that kind of irritated me. And the way it was described, it sounded quite like gatekeeping, which I'm not a fan of. Someone in a Discord dealing with Warhammer 40k basically said that they had gone to a local game store and asked how to make an Imperial Guard army. And they were told to come back when they had an army list. Basically, they were told to come back after they had done what she was asking them how to do. Anyway, I better not get into it. I may have misunderstood what she was saying, but it was still, it sounded incredibly rude. Okay, so, if you're watching this on YouTube after the fact, don't forget to like, subscribe, bell icon, the usual. Anycubic Photon does amazing work with miniatures. I mean, giant robot, yay! Uh, anyway, I have recently gotten a hold of some contrast paints. This one right here is the Gilliman Flesh. The Gillman Flesh. No, it doesn't make it look like the guy from Creature of the Black Lagoon. And what I did was I took this, which is Necrotic Flesh from Army Painter, as you can see right there. And I painted it on the flesh golem I sculpted last week. And then went over it with Gilliman Flesh. I then took Warcolor's Magenta ink because it's a lot clearer. Their inks are a lot more clear than most current. I mean, if you look at, for example, this Vallejo Red. That's a transparent red paint. There's their red ink. This is their game ink. Their game ink is opaque. It's not really that transparent, whereas the inks by Warcolor are very transparent. Anyway, I brushed it over areas like where the little tanks are coming out from the skin, over his scars, places like that. So between the two, it came out pretty good. There's an area on the inside of this back knee here that is right there. That got a little coffee staining and a little around this around the feet. You know, got a little coffee staining, but other than that, it did pretty good with giving us a nice undead tone. I then did dry brush it after the fact. You know, give it a little bit more of that green tinge. The problem is, I chose the wrong ink for those inflamed areas. I chose the magenta instead of the red, so they came out pink. I'm going to be going back over them with red-orange. They're really, really good. Because they're so transparent, they're really, really good about shifting the color rather than darkening and adding to the color or obscuring the color. Instead of it being like these heavily pigmented inks like the Viejo, it's like holding a piece of red gauze over something. You're shifting everything red, yes, but you're also reducing the contrast. With these extremely transparent inks, you're not reducing the contrast. Instead, it's like you're putting a thin piece of red glass around it. So by adding on top of these pinkened areas, more of the red-orange. Oh, hello! That's okay, board. Anyway, the pinkish red areas, if I go back over them with that red-orange, it'll look more like inflamed tissue and not like pink dye. And then I'll be going ahead, I'll be painting the rest of it. But yeah, this contrast paint came out and did a pretty decent job of giving me a basic look. Sunday night, I basically just finished the Aslan board trouble. And here we have another visit from Carlton. Ugh. Really? Yeah, he's purring. Alright. Anyway, so in other words, so far, out of the 5 contrast paints I've gotten, the Gunman Flesh is the only one I've tried. I got 5 specific... I got 5 specific colors with the intent on simulating the paint job that I did with the war colors on one of my... I gotta put you down, little buddy. Okay, I'm gonna put you down on the floor. Okay, go. Anyway. I used the war colors on white, gray, and black. And created this paint scheme. I'm going to do something similar with the contrast paints, just to see how it ends up looking. What I'm simply going to do is I'm going to take one of the do I have one over here? I don't have another one printed right now. Another one of that figure. And I'm going to paint the silver part silver and the gold part's gold. And that's on top of the Wraithbone. And I'm going to use the Palisar Blue, which is a more true blue than the other blues that they've got. The other blues that they've got are more of dark blues. So Palisar Blue on the metal weapons, Basilicanum Gray. On the gold weapons, Nazdreg Yellow. I wanted a slightly browner yellow than the golder yellow of that the other one is. On the flesh, of course, Gunman Flesh. And on the leather and other parts, Snakebite Leather. Trying these 5 sometime over the next week or two after I get another couple paint practice miniatures done. Oh. To be fair, Board Trouble, I've been painting for About 35 years. Well, really total of 20 because I had a 15-year period where I didn't paint. And this is not a good picture of this figure. It does do a good job of showing how I've tinted the cheeks and the nose, but that's not a good photo of it. A slightly better picture of that particular figure. The Orc Horde photos. No, it wouldn't be an Orc Horde. It's in the yeah, here it is. Here's a better picture of that of how this particular orc turned out. Yeah. This is what I would consider a role-playing tabletop standard. Slightly better than what I would consider a wargame standard like for Warhammer or 40k, but not quite up to display or competition standard. I mean, for one, I've got the shaft of the spear is unpainted, is just a single color, and so is the rim around the shield. The boots aren't really that well shaded. The hair top knot isn't that well shaded. But yeah, that's what I would consider role-playing tabletop standard. Now, I was thinking about what I could do tonight, and I really want to try to do something that isn't that common, number one. Number two, would give me some room to play around with some detailing. And so I thought, what about a bad guy? I've done several evil wizards and necromancer types. I've done that orc anti-paladin, which, by the way, he also printed out beautifully on the Photon. I started out with acrylics. It was a brand called Poly S. They came in little glass bottles that they were probably about half the size of these bottles. And to be honest, the paint was horrible. Back then, at least. I don't know how Poly S is now. They are still made. Scary enough, they are still made. But they were thick, like paste almost. No one even thought about thinning paints back then. They were also very rough grain paint. They were on par with the folk art and apple barrel paints that I use to hold figures. And yes, this is a figure I'm working on. Flame-haired tiefling. They were on par with these guys, but thicker and more like a paste. And back then, in 1984, in 1984, the way you painted your miniature, you painted all the base colors, you let it dry, you water down some black and wash over the whole daggone thing with black. That's it. So you tended to paint them with much lighter colors so that when you painted the black and it darkened it down to realistic. Anyway, in the late 80s, not even the late 80s, Warhammer 40k came out in 87 or 88, in one of those 2 years. And about a year before that, I discovered an issue of White Dwarf magazine. And in that issue, it had in the heavy metal section, my brain went seeing all these gorgeous miniatures painted by John Blanche. And it was talking about how he mixed paint on the miniature. He thinned it down to make it not dry as quickly. And then he mixed the highlights and the shadows directly on the miniature, and my brain just could not understand how. Nowadays, we would call that wet blending, two-brush wet blending, or loaded brush, depending on exactly how you're doing it and exactly what effect you're going for. But back then, just the idea. So, by the time I was, let's say by the 90s, the early 90s, everyone was using Games Workshop paint because the options available besides them, Armory, the Raw Partha paints, or Partha paint, and Poly-S were all, again, very dry and chalky. They were very, very matte finish to the point where you couldn't do a wash, because the best wash would still coffee stain, no matter how well you tried otherwise. So pretty much almost everyone used nothing but Games Workshop paints. You didn't have available in most areas. Army Painter wasn't around. There pretty much was no Vallejo. And War Colors and all that weren't even imagined. P3 didn't exist yet. You pretty much had Armory, Partha paints, Poly-S, and Games Workshop, the Citadel paints. And most people would paint by paint, give it a wash of a darker version of the color, dry brush. Or paint, dry brush, then wash. For competition, people were doing layers. And I don't mean layering like it is now, with very thinned down, translucent layers so you have a more even blend. I'm talking like, I had 8 bottles of flesh tone that I would use. And all but 2 or 3 of them were hand mixed to fit in a nice even line. So I would start with a color that was almost equal to this fur brown, this chocolatey fur brown, and build up all the way to a nearly white color on like the very tips here, the very tip here, very tip of the chin. And then I'd paint incredibly dark brown up here, paint the eyes, put a dot in, and then line the top of the eyes just to double check to make sure it had the eyes. So, yeah, it's... Well, I would prep them. I eventually learned to prep them and prime them, mostly because of articles in White Dwarf. And the little, tiny little sections on how to paint in the Warhammer Fantasy Battle 3rd edition and the Warhammer 40k Rogue Trader books. Yeah. Anyway, I stopped painting in about 2003. Because I just didn't have the time anymore. And then last year, about a month or two before this time, so back in around like April, May, I got the 51 bottle set of the Army Painter. And that gave me a basics to work from. That basically was enough to fill this top rack that I printed. Over the next several weeks, or months actually, I then proceeded to rebuild a nice, decent collection of paints. I got some Games Workshop paints, mostly for special effect purposes, like the Agrax Earthshade. Some of the technical paints, like the Agrellan Badlands. Yeah. Yeah, the thing is, Evil Cleric is very, very close to Evil Wizard. Evil Spellcaster in general tends to be the same general look. So I'm probably going to go with more of a Dark Assassin type. He is not painted. And he's the same size as my old Orc Warlord. But he's a lot more dynamic. So, it is 7:52 already. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to get started getting ready so that we can do this thing. Okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to start off. I can anytime except when I do the Anyway, this is my basic male figure. As I've said in the past, this is my own custom geometry figure. I modeled it myself in 3D Studio Max. And it has the level of detail on the chest that it has because, well, without this modifier, it's normally got a pretty detailed torso. I added the smooth torso for when it's clothed. And I rigged it in this program, which is Daz Studio, which allows me to do things like that. Or that. 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 With just a dial twist. We don't need to worry about him being too muscular because we're going to, like I said, we're going to make him into an assassin. I think we will go ahead and shrink the head a little bit to about 95% to make him a bit more dynamic proportions. We're also going to we're also going to shrink the hands. Yeah, let's shrink the hands. Yeah. There, and then now we're going to scale this down, let's say 95% also. Make the hand a little bit more normal proportion. You'll notice he's still not human proportions, especially not with those shoulders. It kind of has to be. Okay, so now we're going to decide what kind of weapon he gets. I mean, I've got a pretty big list of weapons that we could put in his hands. As you can see, I've got at least a sampling of something similar. Daggers tend to be a bit small. A short sword might be better. Maybe a crossbow for a sniper. Definitely not a Dane axe or double-beaked axe. Or flamberge. Great sword, no. Hand axe, maybe. Let's go ahead and give him a dagger on his hip. This is similar. This is pretty much the same as the one that I added to the dwarf. The problem is, it's really got issues. It's too thin for most printings. So what we have to do is I'm going to edit, object, geometry, add push modifier. Okay, that's way too much. So we go into parameters. And under general, mesh offset, we're going to change that push to 0.1. It's going to be a lot thicker than it used to be, and it'll look more like it's in a sheet, in a scabbard. I mean, about there, yeah, 0.17. Now we're going to hide it because we're going to move it after. We're going to manipulate it into position after we do everything else. Well, I don't have a hand crossbow prop. It can be done. I just don't have a hand crossbow prop. Okay, we make him elven. So we go to races, and one of the races is elf. See, looky there, he's an elf. Go figure. Yes, I do tend to have my elves be taller and thinner, kind of more like Tolkien elves or Warhammer elves. I've never been a fan of 5-foot tall Keebler elves. It makes no sense to me. I mean, if you have dwarf, human, elf, you've got almost a perfect line right there in height, build, facial shape, the whole 9 yards. I mean, let's go ahead and turn this parameter settings. Let's let it go to -100 just to show you what happens. Oh, that was -1000. I mean, when we go negative elf, we lost the ears, but he became a lot more dwarf-like. Anyway. But yeah. Elves should be taller and thinner. And now that there's no penalties, you don't have a -2 constitution for being an elf. There's no reason for them to be tiny. Anyway. Rapier. Let's go ahead and let's give him a rapier. One thing about the rapier is I did make it a little bit wider because on FDM it was having trouble printing. This is still narrower than most full-size long swords or arming swords, but that is a rapier. Now, let's go ahead and give him an offhanded weapon, a short weapon. Content library. Alright, let's see what we got. Wand, no. Wakizashi, Viking sword. Torch, maybe. No spear. Short sword. Celtic short sword. Sai. No, because that one doesn't print well. No orky weapons. No big old two-handed weapons. No loot. Kriegsmesser, no. Kopesh, no. Kama, hammer, horn. Hollywood scimitar, sword on the hip. He's already got his hip dagger. Harp, no. That's if we wanted him to be a bard. Glaive, no. Flail, no. No flambears either. Yeah, that's it. Let's give him making him an assassin that's dual-wielding great swords. No. Cutlass in the left hand. How does that sound? He's got a rapier and a cutlass. Yes, longer, thinner objects tend to be more difficult to print, especially on FDM. Yes, I have a resin printer. Yes, I also know that there are far more people out there with, for example, an Ender 3 than with a Photon. So I want my miniatures to be printable at least. I also like being able to do the details so that while the detail may not be actually visible in an FDM print, it affects the form so that it can be implied. For example, I've seen amazing work people have done with... Where did it go? Trying to see some of these figures I've got. Well, I've seen people do amazing work with the chainmail on my Norse Viking warrior. Well, so would a rapier. If an assassin is going for, load out to, sneak into enemy base, kill target violently, and leave, a cutlass would be about the same. You would carry a different weapon loadout when you went in on that mission than you would walking down the street. Now let's just go ahead and make them rapier only. So we're going to take these guys, go to parameters, all. Oh yeah, I forgot to do this. Scale. We went with 95% for that, didn't we? Yeah. So we're going to take all 4 of these fingers, and we're going to take the bend to 0, side to side to 0, and twist to 0, so that we can pose his hand from flat. Okay. Now, looking at it, looks like it's in the right position in his hand. Okay. I'm going to sip a soda, and then we're going to start posing him. Okay. Now, we're going to hide the rapier for right now, so we can see him a bit easier. And we're going to do something kind of awkward. Well, actually, first, while I'm thinking about it, let's make sure we lock the side-to-side on both the shins and the elbows, because elbows and shins don't bend to the side unless they've been hit with violent force. Okay, so we're going to go side to side out. We're going to twist up. We can come side to side back a little bit. And then bend. Now, we now see one of the problems with the proportions that we give the figure. Alright. Okay. Now, if we did, and we took all of these, and we used symmetry to mirror them across the line, the feet blend in together. And whereas in a normal position like this, a human being's feet would actually be able to bend enough to touch the butt before they made contact. What we're going to do is we're going to select the shin here, and the shin here, and we're going to Y-scale them, so that we can then bend them even more. And then Y-scale them down some more so that the feet are... Okay. Now, I'm going to select each foot and pin them. Translation and rotation. Because your hips are never perfectly parallel to the ground. I'm going to start off with the hip. We're going to then bend it back a little. And we're going to kind of rock to the left. Bring it forward just a bit. Okay. Now we're going to unpin all. We're going to hit Control D to drop it down to the ground. We're going to select the waist. We're going to bend forwards. We're going to twist that way. We're going to kind of go side to side a little bit like that. Yeah. Now we're going to bend forward at this area. We're going to twist. And we're going to side to side. Basically what we're going to do is we're now going to do a variant on the 3-point Spider-Man stance. Right view. Now, let's bring this down. Bring it out like that. Let's twist these feet and make them flat. And then we're going to go left view. We're probably going to end up having to move the hand again. Yeah, I'm going to do this just to make sure we can drop it to the ground a bit better. D. Okay, we're going to lower him a little bit more. That's good. And now we bend the hand back. And we're gonna bend the fingers back. There we go. Okay. Perspective view again. We're going to lower the neck by bringing it side to side and forward. And we're going to twist it. And then lift the head. Now if we leave it here, the rapier is kind of pointing down and it's not really in an attack or ready pose. So what we're going to do is we're going to select both the forearm and the upper arm. We're going to twist them. About to there. We're then going to side the hand so that the blade's going back. And we need to pull his head up a bit more. And let's close the mouth. And here we have the basic pose for our assassin. Now I'm going to go ahead and pin the feet again and the hand. Pin translation, pin rotation. Pin translation, up, pin rotation, and I'm going to select the hand. Pin translation, pin rotation. Now the reason I did that is because as it stands, he's a little off balance to his right, to the viewer's left. So I'm going to select that hip, and I'm just going to pull it that way a little bit. There we go. That's a bit better. He's ready to push off with his left leg right leg if he needs to. Now there's one thing we're going to add to him that is going to be added. Let's unpin all. One piece of clothing that we're going to add to him, and that's his boot cuffs. Because where they are, they would be kind of awkward to pull out from the base geometry. No, I don't want to update it. He could be on a rooftop or similar vantage point. He'll be on a miniature base, but you could always have that base be set on a roof. All right, now make sure we have the hip dagger visible, and we don't need to move it. It's in a good spot because of his pose. Okay, so what we're going to do is now we're going to File, Import, and we're going to decide on a base. It obviously would be one of the more city-style bases, which really I think that basically comes down to cobblestone, ancient tile, fancy tile. Let's use the fancy tiles, because he might be on the rooftop of a fancy garden or something. So we go to front view, and we lower this until there. It's pretty much starting to go. Now we go to a right view, and we drag it forward. And now we go to perspective view to see how it looks. Okay, we can pull it over this way just a little to give it, yeah. All right. Now, we hide our props. Our rapier, our hip dagger, our boot cuffs, and our base. This gives us our general figure. File, Export, Resculpt Minis, Broadcast, New, Assess Self. Body, hide it, and make the rapier visible. Oh no, let's make the boot cuffs visible first, because they are clothing. Export clothing, hide them, and now we do the rapier. Then the hip dagger. And then, well, no. Then the base. And pop over to ZBrush. Import, meshes, Resculpt Minis, Broadcast, New, Assess Self, Body. We always start with the body. And now we go to Subtool, Append, Polymesh 3D. Import those. Actually, let's use insert instead of append because it automatically changes the focus of the selection. Rapier. Okay, and here we have, once again, this is our base for sculpting. And we are going to hide the rapiers, the rapier, the dagger, and the base. Because everything else will start from this. And pulling out my Wacom graphics tablet. You know, it's not a Samsung or iPad type tablet. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to clean some things up before we move to high-res sculpting. And one of the things is this area right here. Now, I'm going to go to inflate, increase the size quite a bit, and reduce the intensity quite a bit. And we're going to kind of build back the waste that we lost from the bending. And we're going to kind of inflate down here just to kind of, when it comes time and we blend it all together, we'll be able to smooth this out into pants. We're also going to inflate. Let me go ahead and make these feet just a little bit more like bent feet instead of wrinkles. We're also going to kind of emphasize these muscles that are moving with the back that aren't part of the base geometry, like right here. A little bit more on these shoulder muscles here. Okay, now this neck we have to definitely affect. We're going to start off with move. And we're going to very lightly smooth over this part of the neck. We're also going to go back to inflate. We're going to turn on, remember size. We're going to very gently just start to build up the jaw a little bit. Because the jaw of the default elf is kind of weak. And then using Alt, I'm going to inflate it in. And then smooth. Okay, frame. Alright, he's already looking a lot better and a lot more masculine. So the next step is we take him, we go to geometry, subdivide him a couple times, and we dynamesh at 768. and we take our smooth back to 100 because now we're back at full, and we smooth out this area once again to make it look less like butt crack and more like pants covered butt crack. What we're going to do is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. We're also now going to use inflate. Oh, we still on inflate. Let's Z sub, but we're going to shrink it down, and we're going to kind of draw in there. Now, I'm going to go back to go up to slash stroke and turn off lazy mouse. Reduce the intensity to about there. Make it a lot bigger and capture and smooth it out. Now, okay, now frame out. We're going to take the boots and we're going to increase their geometry quite a bit. Oh, not that much. Yeah. And I'm going to use the move tool to kind of, in the transparency, we're going to grab the centers and pull them down a bit. So they kind of look compressed by the thigh. We want them to look more compressed and less there. Okay. Now, I'm going to get a soda and we're going to look at his outfit and we're going to start working on his clothing. One thing we're going to do is we're going to give him kind of a piratey collar. And to do that, we're going to draw it on him. Oh. Make sure to have the right figure right part selected. Now, we need to give it a little bit of lazy mouse. There we go. We can go ahead and turn off the lazy mouse now because that's all we needed it for. And we're going to pull this out a bit just so we have room to smooth. And I have now been doing this particular sculpt for half an hour. For an hour, rather. Actually, less than that with the shooting the breeze we had at the beginning. Okay. Now this will be then extracted out at a 0.015. We want to get a little bit finer detail than what I've been doing. Except, draw. That's to get rid of the masking. We go to geometry, we're going to dynamesh it at 256. And we're actually going to smooth this area right around here, because what's coming next is going to be the neck piece of the collar. The collar, the part that actually stands up. Now, I'm going to smooth this down so that it blends into the body. The reason for that is because this is just a seam, just a ridge. Okay, now we're going to subdivide it a couple times till it's nice and smooth. Delete lower. Subtool. Merge down. Always okay. And then, okay, we don't have that on, so Dynamesh. Alright, now we're going to use the mouse instead of the tablet for this because mouse is always 100% on. Okay, and now we're going to come around here. Okay. And there we have that. Now we're going to do the standing part of the collar. We're going to extract it out of the neck. We're going to go back to the standard brush and shrink it down even more. And what we're going to do is we're going to hold the stylus in the right direction. We're going to start and let's get this going. Let's shrink this down so we can clean up down here. And that last little bit back in the center. Okay, and now we're going to change, when we go to extract this, we're going to change it. We're going to have double off. Extract, accept, draw to get rid of the masking, and draw to get rid of the masking. Now, geometry, dynamesh it at 256, and now we're going to smooth out around, whoop, just smooth it around here. Okay. Now we're going to go to move. I'm going to grab, pulling it out just a little bit. This is something that might have issues printing. So one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead, we're going to thicken it. Yeah, let's bring that back in. And then okay. Now we go to subtool, we select him, and we merge down. And bing, there we go. We're going to use the move tool right here because that could be straightened up a bit. There. Alright, now okay. Well, it's been 20 minutes since anyone spoke. Next thing up is we're going to do the end of the sleeves. These will not be the usual cuff end down here. Instead, there'll be gloves that end down here. So, I'm gonna just select there. And then there. Now, okay. Frame out. And this is going to be turned double back on. We're going to make this 0.02. Extract, accept, draw, and draw. Now, geometry, dynamesh at 256, because we want to keep these nice sharp edges. And we're going to smooth out the ends. Make these hands into gloves. And let's bring this in quite a bit more because we want this a little bit closer, too close to the wrist here. So let's bring it in quite a bit more. Okay. Now, subdivide it a couple times till nice and smooth. Merge down. And then click and draw. And that blends it together. And now we can go ahead and, once again, smooth over. Smooth over here. Smooth over here. Smooth over here. There's a commercial I hate because its message is so wrong. It's for one of these online universities. And they say, the world in which we live evenly distributes talent, but doesn't evenly distribute opportunity. Bullshit. This world, their talent is not evenly distributed. And just because, I mean, there's absolutely no way how anyone could be as talented as someone like, you know, Hugh Jackman. Not only an amazing actor, he's also an exceptional physical condition, an amazing singer and dancer, an overall nice guy, and a funny guy. There's too much talent there. I don't come anywhere near that much level of talent, just as an example. Okay. Next up, we're going to add in a vest. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and draw there. What we're doing, yeah. Alright, and then coming back, well, let's bring it back over. Add a cleanup right there. And then mix that up. Alright, then we go back down. We bring this back to 0.015. Extract. Accept. Draw. draw. And, oh, gotta reselect that. And blend in the bottom here. Okay. Now, we're going to divide it a few times. And we're going to merge him down. Okay. Now, one thing I'm doing is after I do this initial smoothing pass where I can make sure that I'm hitting the right spots, I hit the number 1 on my keypad a few times until it's a bit more even. Yeah. Now here. Let's do it a little bit more up here. Okay. And then now we're going to do the bottom of the vest. After that will be a belt, and then everything else will be seams, pockets, and detailing. I'm actually not going to give him a cloak. That would cover too much of this type of figure. And really and truly, a cloak as an assassin, unless you are staying down on the streets, it's more trouble than it's worth. If you're a second story man or something like that, the cloak is too much weight, it gets caught on things, it's not worth it. If you're on the street, just keeping sneaking around to break into places, yeah. As an assassin, to go up second story, third story work, no. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to start, we're going to come from here, and we're going to draw down to there, and okay. Okay. Then let's cut this to make it a sharper edge on the bottom of the vest. Same thing right here. Okay. And then we're going to give it some thickness above the bottom edge. Also, the thing about the cloak is that's something that I would add in the posing stage. Because once we're here, we've got the geometry locked down in terms of like pose and that. It's like we have a stone maquette that we're now adding clay to. Is the best way to explain it. Okay, now we extract it, accept, draw to get rid of that, and draw. Now, under Subtool, we go to Geometry, we Dynamesh at 256. And we're not just going to smooth here. We're also going to smooth here. Okay. We're doing this before we do the belt, so that we can have it in place when we do the belt. Okay, divide a couple times. Merge down. Bing. There we go. And one thing we're going to do is just smooth that out. Now, we smooth here. Okay, and woo-be-doo-be-doo-be-doo. Boop 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 boop. And then let's get rid of that seam. It's probably covered up on my head, but oh well. Got back over here, and then just kind of work that right there. Okay, frame out. Just to see how it looks. Yeah, we need to add in a belt, and then we need to add in a little strap coming down to the dagger. Okay. So what we're going to do now is we're going to add that belt. We're also going to take these boots, we're going to deformation, we're going to polish them 50 times. Just because. Yeah. And then 100 times. Okay, that's better. Now we need to make the belt. So this is that's about right for the width of the belt. I'm going to start off coming a little bit above the waist, back down. I'm going to come right above there. Okay. And now we're going to extract it at the usual 0.15. Accept, draw, draw. We're going to Dynamesh it at 256, but we're not going to blend anything. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and subdivide it a couple times. And now we're going to draw on the buckle. We're going to put it kind of here. Oh, no. I forgot, I got to change the depth. Rotate. Yeah, there we go. There we go. And we go back to draw, and we're going to use the move tool to do what else we need to do. Okay. I'm going to grab this whole bit here. And first of all, let's go ahead and under subtool split unmasked parts. Pull this under, because that way it'll be a bit more sharp of a detail without being an undercut like it was before. And then we're going to geometry, subdivide a couple times, delete lower, and merge down. Whoop, no, we want to shrink this quite a bit. I'm going to zoom in here. We're going to blend out some of this. Okay, now frame out. You can see we have our belt, we have our clothing. It's ready for most of the detailing. We're going to start off by adding a seam up the front of the well, let me make this a bit bigger. Is this the direction we want to go? Yes, that is the direction we want to go, but we don't want it Dynameshed, lazy mouse rather, and we want it a lot stronger. So we cut from here up to there, then we cut from here up to there. And we're going to use next is the layer brush I'm going to change the alpha to this alpha 48 and switch to drag dot, and we're going to shrink it and increase intensity 100. We're going to use this. Oh, we need to make it a little bit bigger. Buttons on the vest. Okay, we're going to put one of these on the sides, or two of these on the sides of the gloves, just to have something of interest on the side and back of the figure. Now, we're going to go back to our seam 16. We're going to reduce the intensity to about 13. We're going to reduce the size a little bit. We're going to add in other seams. Oh, wrong way. Okay. And then we're going to do something similar coming down here. Oh, wrong way. It needs to come up. Okay. Oh. And then here. There we go. And then we're going to do one down this... Oh, wrong way. This way. Let's see. Oh, this way. Okay. We're going to make it a little bit bigger and a lot stronger. We're just there. Just to make that little... No, it needs to be more like here. And we're going to put a little there. Okay, so now it's time for what we're going to put on the head. Any suggestions for the head? I'm thinking a Zorro-style mask where it covers his hair and his eyes. We have about a half hour to go. So I might end up not really finishing this until after the show. You know, adding the wrinkles and that. By short cap, what do you mean? Because we are working on something that is, you know, medieval European, fantasy medieval European. Do you mean something akin to, like I mean, he's wearing his vest is probably more like a doublet, which means it's more fitted. Um, the pants are going to be a little bit baggy around the knee area. And the boots don't have heels. I've got an idea. Also, I see something I have to do to the head real quick that I forgot to do before I did everything I was supposed to. And that is, I've got to detail these ears, and I've also got to refine the division between the ear and the head. Now, and kind of, making sure we get that, the basic ear shape in there. This does mean he's got huge honking ears, but I'd rather have huge ears that don't break off than ears that do. Hey Mark, we are making an assassin. To be exact, let me go ahead and pull up his weapons and gear. There we go. This is our current state of the assassin. I was thinking either a full head mask or give him kind of a buzz cut. Just short hair. What's your thoughts there, Mark, on the hairstyle? Yeah, I guess with a buzz cut, he could be used more as a generic swashbuckler as well as the assassin type that we've made him. Well, not necessarily buzz cut, but definitely a, let's say, shaved on the side style. Let's do it this way. Let's just select the top there. And a little bit of and we're gonna come back around here. Okay. Now we're gonna extract it. And now we go to deformation. Well, first we go to masking and inverse. Then we go to deformation. Oh, actually, no, we're going to mask him. We're going to grow it a little bit. Okay, and now we're going to inflate it a bit. And then we're going to cut that. We're going to polish it. 1. Now, geometry, Dynamesh, let's make it 256. And we're going to smooth out the sides and the back. And then we're going to move, and we're going to make it a bit bigger. And we're going to pull out the front. And then bring this out. Okay, that looks like a lot. This is actually going to be easier to do than the regular hairstyle. So what we do is we start with a rake. Right here. Z sub. Let's turn off. Okay, good, lazy mouse is off. We're going to reduce the intensity quite a bit. And we're going to then subdivide till we get, close that. One more, delete lower. And we're going to scrape up. Oh, that last one didn't do well. Okay. Now we go up to here. We're going to go to the standard brush. We're going to change the alpha to this one right here. Going to make it a lot bigger and make sure we turn off lazy mouse. Turn intensity down a bit more and go to drag dot. We're going to just, okay, we need intensity higher. Message here and do this. And basically turn this into the top of the hair. And there we go. Frame out, and there we go. That's our hair. The next step will be wrinkles. It's already 9:12. I don't think I have the time to fully wrinkle every aspect of this and then go in and detail our dagger, our rapier, and that sort of thing. That, and I'm kind of brain fried right now today. Had a lot of stuff going on. So what I'm going to do is I go to Save As. And this is being saved as zbot ss self z body z tool. I can then load it in later and go back in and redetail give it the wrinkles and that. But yeah, this is our swashbucklery elf. I also have to refine the hands. I have to pull those fingers out of the ground, maybe pull the thumb in closer so that it's either touching the ground or it's alongside the hand. But yeah, this is our elf so far. Let me go ahead and go back here. Carlton! What do you think you're doing, Carlton? Anyway. I actually might finish this before Thursday. It depends on what I've got going on. Anyway, I heard an interesting reference today. I heard that these aren't gray hairs. They're experience points. You've got XP. Until you get your first gray hair, you're still a first level character. And I got one sticking that way right here. There it is. Yeah. Until you get this, you're still a first level character. We did some talking earlier about the paints I've been using up until recently as pretty much my standard. My new war colors and the new contrast paints. You see, I didn't get my first gray hairs until I was about 42. This is in 7 years I've gotten this dusting of silver and gray, and it's as you can see from this side, the lighting on this side, it's strongest along my temples. I've got the Marvel Comics male pattern grayness. The Marvel Comics pattern, yeah. But I was talking, I got just the right contrast paints to make on my paint figure the same basic color scheme that I did with the war colors. Further detailing, like the gem and the trim, I can do with either the war colors or the standard paints. But that way I'll be able to get a nice little comparison of war color versus contrast paint. Yeah, Mr. Fantastic, Doctor Strange, some versions of Tony Stark. Yeah, I've got the Marvel Comics male pattern grayness. And they were all in their late 30s. Mr. Fantastic is supposed to be in his late 30s, early 40s. I'm older than almost every major Marvel Comics superhero, except for those who are innately immortal or long-lived, like Wolverine and Thor. Technically, Spider-Man, Daredevil, Fantastic Four are all older than me. But Black Panther isn't. Because they came out before I was born. But, oh well. She-Hulk, Ms. Marvel, aka Captain Marvel, they're more recent than me. And then there's some that I see as a Johnny-come-lately that I don't see why it got so popular, like Venom. My problem with Venom is when he came out, he got a huge push, saying, look, it's the best character ever, look! And it's like, it's just the symbiote on a bodybuilder. How's that such a big deal? And now he's one of the most popular characters, and people are like, Venom, yeah, awesome, I love the movie, and I didn't. I got snacks. So anyway, I have my appointment with the dentist today, and it's going to be a bit before I can get these pulled, as in like a couple months. Exactly. See, the thing is, Venom, as he was when he was first introduced, Venom and Eddie Brock were nothing more than evil Spider-Man with a split personality. That's all they started as. What they are now is what they became over a couple decades of adding on to the mythos. Green Goblin was and always was the archenemy of Spider-Man. He was not exactly like Spider-Man, but different. He killed Gwen Stacy. He did not have babies with Gwen Stacy. He died impaled on his goblin glider, spawning multiple imitators. But the idea that he could regenerate had already been kind of presented. So his return wasn't hugely surprising. It was only surprising in that it took so long. The whole Clone Saga was nonsense. Carnage is one of the worst characters ever made. Anytime you make a character that can never be fully defeated, like Carnage, a lot of storytelling drama is gone. You know Carnage is going to get out. You know they'll never be taken. It's not even a matter of the Penguin gets out of jail. It's a matter of they can, no matter how permanently they take care of him. They won't even need to make an excuse. They've got one. Yeah, he's in Cletus Cassidy's blood. He'll never go away. Cletus Cassidy dies. The blood will bring him back. There's low effort storytelling for describing the return of the villain. What I think is funny is how the Punisher started. The Punisher started off thinking Spidey was a villain and trying to kill him. Spidey beat him, got him thrown in jail. Punisher gets out, goes crazy, and is shooting jaywalkers and litterers, and not the mafia folk that his entire concept is built around him facing. Anybody who commits a crime must be punished. And he still hadn't finished his original mission. So that story might be a little bit out of character, a little bit no longer canon, you know. Green Goblin, in the original version of the Green Goblin, did not have a mental disorder. The original version of the Green Goblin, he was not insane. He did not have multiple personality like the Sam Raimi Goblin. He was just an evil corporate executive who was also a scientist who experimented on himself and was like, oh, whoa, I'm super strong. Let's get to making some crime. Oh, he's trying to stop me? I'm gonna screw his world. That was the original Green Goblin. The laughter and all that was just an act to scare people, to frighten people, to creep them out. There's actually not as many. When you leave the Batman Rogues Gallery behind, there's not a lot of mental disorder villains. The best way to do a villain, you have two characters. Something really, really bad happens to both. Let's say their parents get murdered in a mugging. The hero says, I want no one else to lose their parents. No one should feel how I feel. The villain says, I want everyone to feel how bad I feel. It's like Robin Williams once famously said that there are two types of comedians. The first are always happy and joyful and want everyone else to feel happy and joyful. The second are always sad and depressed and want no one else to feel sad and depressed. So, heroes. Spider-Man. He doesn't want to see anyone else lose family the way he lost Uncle Ben. He doesn't want to see someone else hurt because he failed in his responsibility. Green Goblin doesn't care. He has no attachments to people besides what they can do for him. And now that he's got a mask to hide behind, he can do whatever he wants. Because when he first died on the Zone Goblin glider, Spider-Man kept it a secret. He did not reveal Norman Osborn's identity except to his son, Harry Osborn. At the time, Harry did not know Peter was Spider-Man. He just thought, Spider-Man murdered my father. My father was the Green Goblin? Doesn't change things. And thus, Harry, for a while, became the villain Green Goblin. But because of that, you had this entire story, like where Norman Osborn ends up being a member of the U.S. government and creating the Dark Avengers and all this nonsense. Yeah. Heroism. The circumstance is thrust upon you. The choice to be hero or villain is yours. Again, that's the situation. You've got superpowers. As a result of your superpowers, and you misusing them, your wife dies. You say, fuck the world, I have destroyed the only thing I ever cared about, it's all going down. Or do you say, oh my God, what have I done? I cannot keep on like this. I must use what I have responsibly. For her memory. It's your choice. Same situation. Same circumstance. Superpowers that you gain, that your misuse of them causes your wife to die. Two different choices. And then there's always the phrase, what you are in the dark. The truest essence of who you are is what you do when no one is watching and no one will ever know. When you're wearing a mask, when you've got the anonymity of the internet, you act as your truest self, where no one else will ever know what you do. Yes, there are some people who use the anonymity of the internet to put on another mask and pretend to be somebody else, who play around with being someone who would do things they themselves would never do. That's a different form of mask. But you see what I'm saying? Who you are in the dark is where you make your decision of hero or villain. If Joker was not inherently an evil man, a villainous being, the Red Hood, the original Red Hood, then when he was knocked into the vat of chemicals, yes, that happened in the comics too, and he came out with the white skin and the green hair and the red lips, he would have ended up more like the Creeper than the Joker. The Creeper being a kind of an anti-hero, kind of goofy, loopy, loony, but still a good guy. The decision between hero and villain is probably already decided inside your very nature, but you may not even know it. Some people, it's pretty obvious. If Mr. Rogers ever got superpowers, he'd probably use them to help build houses, make sure that kids have food. You know, the absolute purest of the pureness. Meanwhile, if if Charles Manson had ever gotten superpowers, we'd see a reign of madness the likes of which the world had never seen. Oh, it's empty. Yeah. Into the trash. Get another can. Anyway, it is 9:28. I started at 7:30, so it is now the 2-hour mark. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my go ahead and my usual. I'm going to count down from 5 to 1, and when I get to 1, I'm going to say something goofy and go and then when I see the in the screen, because, you know, lag, then I'm going to be ending the broadcast. Okay? Alright. That's going to be a 5, a 4, a 3, 2, and a 1. How does an inhabitant of Endor keep up with a Imperial stormtrooper? Ewoks.